I'm Kevin Petrick. Welcome to Arts and Letters Currents. World-renowned scientist and UN Messenger of Peace, Jane Goodall, will be visiting FAU on Wednesday, February the 27th at 4 p.m. in the University Arena on the Boca Raton campus. The event is part of the 2008 Peaceful World, Peaceful Mind series, presented by FAU's Peace Studies program in the Dorothy F. Schmidt College of Arts and Letters. Recently, Peace Studies Director Noemi Marin stopped by our studios to discuss this and other events on her calendar this spring. Dr. Marin, an associate professor in FAU's School of Communication and Multimedia Studies, told me that Dr. Goodall's work is more relevant to peace studies than some of us might think.
Well, the Peace Studies program is really growing and thriving at this point with a large number of activities, both in the academic realm, but also in, as I just mentioned, on the outreach programs. The student clubs are, the United Nations Student Club is also very involved, and Dr. Jeffrey Morton, the previous director of the Peace Studies program, had been continuously working with that particular part of our program. Dr. Jane Goodall says we have a choice to use the gift of our lives to make the world a better place. Dr. Goodall's humanitarian and environmental research brings us into the world of nature as a fundamental place for our actions of peace. After all, peace is never a static goal, rather a human and humanitarian process that engages the world in its problems and its beauty.
Dr. Noemi Marin, associate professor of rhetoric and culture in FAU's School of Communication and Multimedia Studies. She's also director of the Peace Studies program, which is presenting a lecture by world-renowned scientist Jane Goodall on Wednesday, February the 27th at 4 p.m. on FAU's Boca Raton campus. Admission is $15 for the general public and free for FAU faculty, staff, and students. For further information, log on to www.fauevents.com. That's www.fauevents.com. Just ahead, our visit with Dr. Marin continues with a rundown of other Peace Studies activities. But with acclaimed primatologist Jane Goodall still in our thoughts, Professor Marin couldn't resist sharing a favorite piece of music associated with nature.
Saint-Saëns' Carnival of the Animals reminds us of the joy of the world of nature in a witty and humorous work. Worrying about his reputation as a serious composer, Camille Saint-Saëns strictly forbade the publication during his lifetime of his Grande Fantaisie Zoologique, Le Carnaval des Animaux, which he composed in Vienna in 1886, performing only once in a private concert in Paris. The composition finally appeared in print posthumously in 1922, becoming a phenomenal crowd pleaser and obscuring the rest of Saint-Saëns' extensive work. As H. Crete mentions, La Grande Fantaisie Zoologique not only depicts the denizens of the animal world, among which, incidentally, Saint-Saëns numbers pianists, but also contains many parodistic allusions to Saint-Saëns' composing colleagues. Tortoises dancing Offenbach's famous cancan in slow motion, an elephant stomping in the Danse des Sylphides from Berlioz's La Damnation de Faust, and to Mendelssohn's Elfin Scherzo, fossils rattling beloved French folk songs such as J'ai du bon tabac and How vous dirais-je maman, as well as the main theme from the composer's own Danse Macabre. Saint-Saëns' The Carnival of the Animals reminds us that joy and music, after all, have to remain always part of our world, a world of peace. So let's listen to Le Carnaval des Animaux, conductor Gennady Rojdestvenski, Amy Flammer, Jean-Marie Conquier, violins, Jean Dupois, viola, Alain Meunier, violoncello, Gabin Lorion, double bass, Philippe Pierlot, flûte, Guy Danguin, clarinette, Didier Benetti, percussion, Victoria Postnikova, Jean-François Issier, piano. conductor Gennady Rojdensvensky, Amy Flammer, Jean-Marie Conquier, violins, Jean Dupois, viola, Alain Meunier, violoncello, Gabin Lorion, double bass, Philippe Pierlot, flûte, Guy Danguin, clarinette, Didier Benetti, percussion, Victoria Postnikova, Jean-François Issier, piano. Saint-Saëns, the Carnival of the Animals.
Dr. Noemi Marin, director of the Peace Studies program in FAU's Dorothy F. Schmidt College of Arts and Letters, briefly doubling as classical music announcer. She's our guest on this edition of Arts and Letters Currents. Professor Marin is looking forward to Dr. Jane Goodall's lecture on February the 27th on FAU's Boca Raton campus. But the Peace Studies calendar features other equally interesting offerings throughout the year.
As I mentioned, the Peace Studies program is thriving, and we are very happy that both academically and also for the outreach program series, we have been able to continue to have activities at high standard. One of the things that we are excited about is the initiative that took place and was approved last year, that the Public Intellectual Program and the Dorothy F. Schmidt College of Arts and Letters had agreed to have a Peace Studies concentration track, which is actually, the information is available online. But we are excited because we already have a group of possible graduate students interested in that particular track. In addition, the Peace Studies program has the ability to bring international scholars and also to create international related activities based on the Chastain Johnston Fund. And recently we had Dr. Kramer, who was the first of our presenters in the lecture series Conflict, Peace, and Societies in Transition, who spoke in particular on insurgency and counterinsurgency in the Middle East and in the Caucasus, and the area bringing very interesting data about the foreign policy issues in such a conflictual, not just from the standpoint of peace and war, but also in terms of the problematic of global policies that need to create an awareness. So we were very lucky that the response that we had for this particular lecture, sponsored by the Chastain Johnston Fund, was tremendous. And the interest in the graduate students' interest in particular, but also the public, it was open to the public, was quite a success. The lecture series that I wanted to mention was an addition to the outreach Peaceful Mind, Peaceful World. Is a very interesting one. It seems to be at least the first part of it. It's called Conflict, Peace, and Societies in Transition. And the first speaker in the series was Dr. Mark Kramer from Harvard University, speaking on insurgency and counterinsurgency in the Middle East and the Caucasus. His presentation was on January 16th, part of the Civic Engagement Week. And in addition to that, Dr. Kramer also conducted a graduate workshop with a lot of graduate students from doctoral and master programs in the Dorothy F. Schmidt College of Arts and Letters. I mentioned that he was the first one. There are two additional speakers. Dr. Cesar Ornatovsky from San Diego State University will present on April 17th, I hope, a public lecture on the discourse of freedom and nationalism in communist and post-communist Poland. Dr. Ornatovsky's work is very known in relation to both Lech Walesa, but also the Pope John Paul II. So I think that will be an interesting event. And again, that will be in connection to a workshop for the graduate students. And the last speaker in the series will be Dr. Vladimir Tismaneanu from University of Maryland College Park in May, at the very early May, and he will talk about post-communist traumas in Romania and the need for better understanding of the crisis of communist countries in order to perform change in current times.
Dr. Noemi Marin, Associate Professor of Rhetoric and Culture in FAU's School of Communication and Multimedia Studies. She's also Director of the Peace Studies program, whose 2008 Peaceful World, Peaceful Mind series, The Compassionate Universe, opens with a lecture by Dr. Jane Goodall on Wednesday, February the 27th at 4 p.m. on FAU's Boca Raton campus. Admission is $15 for the general public and free for FAU faculty, staff, and students. For more information about this and other programs in the series, log on to www.fauevents.com. That's www.fauevents.com. I'm Kevin Petrick, thanking you for listening and inviting you to join us for another edition